All right, guys, welcome to the first episode of today's combat with yours truly, CCL Townsend. And today we are reviewing the UFC 299 card and a lot more. Not only that, we are also reviewing the other fight card that happened this past week on Friday. And this was a very fucking interesting card. It was Francis Ngannou, a former UFC heavyweight champion, versus Anthony Joshua, a two-time boxing world heavyweight champion. And that was very interesting as well. And then a bombshell fucking boxing announcement. But we'll get to everything. We'll get to everything then. But I do want to say that our other two planned guests didn't get to make it today. But we do have another one who's also going to be on two other episodes of season one of the Today's Combat podcast, and it's Charlie Taylor right here. So go ahead, like say what you want to say before we start.
So, I've been training for a bit, but I'm more interested in UFC 299. He's more of the boxing guy, but I'd say I'm more versed in MMA than I am in any other really combat sport. So he's going to mostly take the lead on the boxing. But for 299, before we get into anything, I will say my two fights that I were excited for most on this card, Curtis Blades and Jailton Almeida. Prelims, I know, but that still was going to prove a lot about both fighters. And then also Dustin Poirier, Benoit Saint Denis.
Yes,
we will get to that one later. That one was incredible.
absolutely fucking awesome.
Another thing too, Sean O'Malley proving himself tonight. And big call out. If you didn't watch it, we'll get to it. It's a surprise. But that's about all I'm interested for these fights. The Ngannou fight was definitely a interesting thing.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna go ahead and start off about what we just witnessed and then work our way down. So if you guys can't already tell, we are recording this immediately right after UFC 299. One of the I may be recency biased, I don't know, but probably one of the best UFC cards that I've seen in recent memory. It had everything. It had fucking bombshell knockouts. It had perfect fucking stand-up fights. It had good wrestling. It was a mixture of everything put together, which is what you want to see in a UFC fight. Charlie probably would agree on that.
Yes, exactly.
It's like the perfect mixture of everything is what you need in combat sports, which is why we are here to talk about this, because not a lot of people want to get into every single detail of combat sports, which is why we're here to talk about it on today's combat. So I say we just go ahead and start off. I want to say one thing that Charlie pointed out to me, because unfortunately I wasn't able to watch all the prelims, but I've seen clips, I've seen the highlights, but I will say the Spain is going to be a monster, dude. The Spain making his UFC debut on the prelims earlier tonight.
Goodness.
What a knockout in, what was it, 19 seconds?
18 or 19
18
seconds.
to 19 seconds.
Yeah.
It was one of those.
That
was impressive for me.
Yeah, no, that kid, he's going to be I say kid, but he's 30-something years old. He's
Doesn't
going to be
matter,
he's going to be a problem. I mean, he's 6'7" with
you could be 45 years old, but if you're new to a generation, like not a generation, but if you're new to a certain company,
yes, exactly.
But
that he's going to be a problem, man. If he this fight lasted 18 seconds, his last combined 5 fights, and I know everybody's told me he's fought nobody's. Everybody's 0-5 against him. That's how a lot of amateur promotions go. Unless you're PFL, Bellator, or ONE, you're not going to have guys that are Khabib, like Khabib record or 100 plus fights. You're going to have guys like that who are 0-1, 0-4, like people say a lot with Khabib, taxi drivers, because a lot of them have day jobs. MMA, nobody makes a living off an amateur MMA.
Of course not, because if you're in the UFC, like I heard, Francis Ngannou, who we're going to talk more about later, you don't really get paid much.
A lot of the UFC fighters don't get paid much.
It's almost a problem, in this generation when it comes to fighting, because it's there's no meeting in the middle. It's either you're making the most amount of money or you're making the least amount of money, and sometimes in very rare occasions you'll just get right there in the middle to where you'll be able to make a living, but at the same time it's not enough.
Yeah, and see, that's one of the big hot points that has recently come up with MMA is there have been a lot of fighters. I'm not sure who the female fighter was. She fought on a couple cards ago, but she was literally, she had to take out a loan. She got a bonus from the UFC for Fight of the Night. I'm sure everybody's seen the clip.
Alexa Grasso?
Maybe. I'm not 100% sure.
Because that fight was absolutely fucking amazing. One of the best prelim fights I've ever seen in my life.
It might have been her. I don't recall who exactly it was. I'm sure we could find the clip. But She said she had to take out a loan, and her husband and their dog packed up everything they owned, went to, I believe it was Vegas where the fight was. She got a 50K performance of the night bonus, and it changed her whole week essentially, and it really helped her because these fighters, it's not just them making the money. They have to pay their gyms, their trainers, their doctors, their nutritionists. All of their team has to get paid too. Their team doesn't do that for free. As much as their team might love the sport of MMA,
Yeah.
let's be realistic. Nobody does it for free. Not even the fighters. No fighter wants to get CTE or nobody wants to get knocked out or choked out, but they do it because they love it.
It's one of those things to like. Not trying to cut you off,
no, you're good.
But it's one of those things to where like it could be one of the most painful things
Mhm.
ever. Like you could get absolutely rocked to the point to where you're barely even able to function.
Yeah.
Like there's this one boxer. His name is like it's such a fog of my memory, but I'm pretty sure I could try to think, but uh damn, it's really whoever's listening could probably understand who I'm trying to talk about, but I know this guy's name is just a big fog in my memory.
Yeah.
It was a Mexican boxer, and he was really good, and he rabid punches to the back of the head, and he basically handicapped for the rest of his life. He's going to be able.
Sorry to cut you off.
You're fine.
Like Daniel Cormier said something on Joe Rogan's podcast like a month or two ago. He said something about boxing that I thought was actually really interesting. He said boxing is a more dangerous sport than MMA. And I understand how that comes off because it's like, well, in MMA, you're getting knee to the face, elbow to the face, all that stuff. But boxing, he said this too, you have that time to recover and think you're okay. In MMA, if you go down, the other dude's on top of you, just hammer fit, stuff like you don't have time to be like, oh, I'm okay. You have exactly like maybe a second to be like, oh shit, I'm about to die. Like there haven't been any deaths as far as I know in MMA, and none of the big promotions. But
there's been people killed in boxing a lot.
Oh yes, no, tons.
A lot more recently.
Now,
too.
See, that's also the thing. Boxing has been around for way longer than MMA has, but again, it's still more. I'd say more dangerous, but yeah.
But back to what we were saying, the Spain, those punches when he was getting rushed. When he was getting rushed into the corner, he was basically able to maneuver himself out of the way and just catch him, and it was just perfectly executed, perfectly timing. He's going to be a problem in the heavyweight division.
I'd have to say his attempt at a head kick
was not.
I'm not saying I could do better, but
it was not. It was not that good.
It was the most heavyweight attempt I've ever seen at it, and I thought when I first saw that clip, I'm not gonna lie, I thought he got humbled. I thought the other dude was about to jump on him. And he made an amazing recovery and just pounded the other dude. And that was a really good fight. That kid's gonna be a problem.
Yes, indeed. Now let's Curtis Blades too.
Curtis Blades. That Joe Almeida fighting Curtis Blades. Now
the first round was a little lackluster. But when he came back in the end, those hammer fists were doing some significant damage, which is what led to the knockout victory for Curtis Blades.
Yeah.
I mean, he had what was it, a 15 fight win streak, or
Jailton Almeida was undefeated in UFC with 15 straight fights. Yeah, his last fight against Derek Lewis, which that's where I was talking about, where he was kind of proving something, or at least we thought this fight would be a proving ground for him because a lot of people did not like how he fought Derek. I didn't like how he fought Derek Lewis. I understood why he did it because Derek Lewis, as much as I love the guy, doesn't do jiu-jitsu. That's a lot of the heavyweight division. But Jailton Almeida controlled him that whole fight and dominated him. Nobody liked that because nobody likes it. A lot of UFC fans. They don't like the jiu-jitsu part of it, especially at the heavyweights, which I get, but it's a part of it. And he did what he had to do to win, especially against somebody with Derek Lewis, who has most knockouts in the UFC. I think it's 13 or 14. I mean, yeah, you got to be careful of a guy's knockout power, especially when he's that big and known for it. But this fight, he tried to do the same thing in round one. It panned out for him in round one, but round two, he went for what looked like a single leg, and he didn't finish it. And Curtis Blades took advantage of it, hammer fisting, and he got. I'm 90% sure he got knocked out. It might be ruled as a TKO. It's still ruled as a KO, obviously, but I mean those hammer fists. As soon as I saw him turn over to his side, I knew he was done. But it was a good fight for Curtis Blades.
Yeah, for sure. Now we gotta just jump all the way to the main card. UFC 299, the main card, probably, like I said in the beginning, you guys, probably
one of the best cards
if
in
not
recent memory.
the best card of this year so far.
Oh no,
I know we're only 3 months into
we've
2024,
only had
but this is probably the best card, not just in UFC, but in combat sports in general that I've seen this year. Could be recency bias, but from, like I said, from the knockouts to the fighting ability, just from just the fights alone, just the card was absolutely perfection, and I just can't wait to see what happens at UFC 300 because I know if that card isn't going to live up to 299, it will be right there on its tail being able to do that. But the first fight of the main card that we saw tonight was Peter Yan versus Song Yadong.
Yeah.
Now, both fighters are absolutely incredible in their craft, but I got to say this. I was really thinking for a second that Song Yadong was going to get the win. Song Yadong was absolutely controlling the entire first round with Peter Yan. It was,
I give him that first round, but I mean, Peter Yan, he bounced back, and I know recently, I guess he didn't lose. He won or he lost his last fight. Excuse me, but I guess it said he won 4 of his last 5. But I think a lot of people remember him for that fight with Aljamain with the illegal with the championship, and a lot of people consider Aljamain a fake champion for that, which a fair point, but it's the rules. Stuff happens. He was champion. He had the belt, so he was champion. But I mean, Peter Yan making a good case for himself to maybe get a rematch with Sean, or if Sean loses his belt to somebody like Marab, who knows? You know?
Yeah, but it wasn't the best fight on the card tonight, but not even close. But it was a good fight to start off an amazing card for 2024. It was a
great appetizer.
Exactly, and a great appetizer for a great entree of fights that come afterwards.
On to the next one. Michael Venom Page making his UFC debut.
Wasn't that third?
Was that third?
It was Gilbert Burns and
Oh, I forgot about that fight. Yes, I totally Gilbert Burns and Jack Maddalena. Yeah. So I honestly I was hoping Gilbert Burns wins. I like him.
Of course. Gilbert Burns is a legend in the UFC. Yeah. Like no matter what, like the last fight that I remember seeing him in. Now he could have had one before, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last one I remember was with Jorge Masvidal, which was in Jorge Masvidal's retirement fight. I think that could have been his last fight.
I want to say, I can check, but I didn't pay too much attention to that fight watching it, but I do know that the knockout was gnarly. It was bad, man. It was
what a knockout by Maddalena, dude.
Yeah,
it's one of those things, like, it's different when you're seeing somebody that's freshly new to the UFC getting knocked out because you don't really feel sympathy for the guy. But Gilbert Burns, an absolute legend in this crap of combat sports and MMA and UFC, it's just, when you see someone like that getting knocked out, somebody that you've been watching for years, it really hits home. And it really does show, like, how age can really affect some things. Because Gilbert Burns, he did not look his best out there. He looked kind of slow. He was doing some good kind of damage to Maddalena, but it wasn't really much to really catch your eye.
It wasn't something you're gonna see on the scorecard. But I'm looking at this post here from ESPN. Obviously, it looks like he was going for a double leg. If you see on there, it looks like he was going for some sort of takedown, maybe a single leg,
and then led right to
he timed it well with a knee. And that's actually 17 wins in a row. So I got to give Maddalena his props there. 17 wins in a row is not easy, especially being a ranked fighter going up against, I believe, Burns was ranked 8th, I want to say, maybe? Gilbert Burns was ranked 4th, actually, I think it says. I believe he was ranked 4th, and Maddalena was ranked 11th. That is impressive for somebody to do that to a fighter and be on a 17-win streak. And I'm not sure I'm not exactly tapped into that community, but he could be a title challenger here to come, honestly. If he's on 17-win streaks, they might, depending on how much he jumps up, they might just give him the title shot right then and there.
No, honestly, I wouldn't blame him either. Jack Maddalena, he looked absolutely phenomenal in the fight with Gilbert Burns. It really showed who the better fighter was that night. Well, tonight, obviously.
Yeah.
It really showed who the best fighter was tonight. And really, it just goes to show, like, we have limited time with these fighters, guys. Like, you got to really, like, you can't really, like, nag at them for the majority of what they do wrong, then more what they do right. Because at the end of the day, if you truly love these fighters, you have limited time with
Appreciate
them.
them while they're here.
We learned that
Because
we learned that with Khabib. When Khabib had his final fight, nobody saw it coming.
oh
Then when
yeah,
he retired, he
it,
just basically
that
vanished with
was
the belt. It was
yeah
something that no one really expected. And
yeah
honestly, I feel like we're on the same route with Gilbert Burns. We could see Gilbert Burns maybe have one or two more fights, and then I think it may be a wrap for him, just like how it was when he fought Jorge Masvidal
yeah
when Jorge Masvidal retired after his fight with him.
yeah
We could be looking at one of those moments, which is why we really need to start appreciating these guys more, because Gilbert Burns is a guaranteed future UFC Hall of Famer.
oh yeah
He's done so much for the brand of MMA and so much for the brand of UFC. It's just going to be sad to see him go. But I feel like a lot of MMA fans are going to have to
yeah
be prepared for that.
yeah.
We might not be with Gilbert Burns very much longer.
And maybe we want to see something with him where he comes out on top. Maybe not necessarily a win, but maybe his career doesn't get to the point of like Tony Ferguson or somebody like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because Tony's last fight against Patty, I love both of those fighters. Patty, he's a great personality,
Mm-hmm.
but just seeing Tony in that state was just sad.
It really
It
was.
just it made me sad watching it because seeing what his title run, that was incredible. But just hopefully we don't see somebody like Volk who looks like he's going down that path right now.
Bulk is another
Yeah,
person that we should
that
really
one.
be prepared for.
That one is going to sting even when it happens, no matter how.
Because no matter what, you got to look when you're looking at somebody that's out of their prime. It's not like you're looking at a completely different fighter. You're looking
Yeah,
at the same person that carried you through all those years as being a
yeah,
top guy, like Alexander Volkanovski, who in my opinion is the featherweight GOAT.
yeah. No,
Like
that's
down the line, it could change to Ilya Taporia, who we'll talk about later.
yeah.
But as of
No,
right now, it is still without a doubt Alex
Volk. Yeah.
Volkanovski, Alexander the Great. He's absolutely phenomenal in his craft. He's so good. And I feel like the main thing that really
Did him in
did him in was the fight with
short
Islam,
notice. The
Islam
second one,
Makhachev.
or
The first one was a really close
The
fight. It
first
really
one,
could have gone either way.
oh yeah, no, that
But
was
the
a big
second fight, taking it on short notice, is probably what was the start of the downfall for him, which is
yeah,
probably, in my opinion, is why he did so lackluster in the fight with Ilya Taporia. And I feel like that we also need to be very cautious about how we look at Alexander Volkanovski, because we can call him washed, we can say whatever we want, but at the end of the day, he's still the same fighter that we still call the greatest of all time in the featherweight division. And we really got to be prepared for that too, because that one is going to hit way harder than majority of other fighters, because he's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, then the next fight after the Gilbert Burns is what the one you were about to say. Michael Venom Page making his UFC debut against
Kevin Holland.
Kevin Holland. It was
an interesting fight. I was seeing shades of Michel Pereira, who fought on the prelim card earlier, got a really nice rear naked choke on. I'm not sure. I don't remember who exactly it was, but he got a real good rear naked choke in the first round. It was like, I think there was a minute left in the first round or a minute into the first round, but he got a real good rear naked choke in there. But yeah, like we were saying, Michael Venom Page making his UFC debut against Kevin Holland on a main card of quite possibly one of the most hyped up cards of the year.
Of course, yeah.
Ever since Dana announced it, it's been hyped up. But it was a really good showing for your first fight, and the fact that he went up against a ranked opponent too, and it's not his first fight in MMA, but man, that guy is a bad man.
It's like the thing is, just because it wasn't his first fight in MMA, making it your first fight in the UFC, that's the big leagues of MMA. You could argue that Bellator, who got bought out by PFL,
Bellator,
you could argue that PFL is kind of catching up to the UFC. But when you think of MMA, you automatically think of Ultimate Fighting Championship. You don't think of any other brand.
Yeah.
So when you're coming into the UFC with already a pretty decent record on your roster there, you got to understand that it is almost impossible to not try to make a good first impression, because if you don't, then you're out of there.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks, because a lot of people that have good talent come in, they have like bad nights, they don't really perform well, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
But Michael Venom Page, he made sure that he came in tonight and he put on a show with his fighting style. With his walkout coming out to the Undertaker's theme song, my WWE fan self absolutely geeking over it. But
anybody knows the Undertaker.
When those gongs go off, you know exactly what is happening, and that's probably what gave him the courage to walk up in that octagon and do what he did, and that was put on a show for everybody in Miami, Florida. And he absolutely, he absolutely dogged Kevin Holland.
Oh,
Kevin
yeah, no.
Holland had some good shots in
Yeah,
there,
no,
but
he had
at
some
the
good
end of the
shots, but
day, it was in a unanimous decision victory that ultimately got it for Michael Venom Page MVP.
mhm.
And truly was the MVP in
Yeah.
that fight.
I mean, there were people chanting his name.
Mhm.
That's how you know you made it, especially in that crowd. That crowd was quite possibly, I won't say the loudest. I
Yeah.
guess over the fights they were, but it wasn't the loudest crowd pop I've heard. That was when Sean Strickland caught Israel Adesanya back, back in September of
Mm,
last year, was that? Yeah.
yeah, when
Back
he
in
won the
September of
middleweight
last year, yeah, in Australia. And that crowd pop was just something I've never heard of before.
title. Mm.
But Michael Venom Page, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, for sure.
He should probably be up to 13 now. But I believe he wasn't even, I want to say he wasn't representing a country because it had him marked as unlabeled. And then also his
Yeah, he's
record,
from the UK, I'm pretty
he's
sure.
from the UK, yeah.
He's British for sure.
Oh, yeah, no, he's British. And then I believe his record was 22 wins and like 1 or 2 losses. I mean, dude is going to be
He had 2 losses, I'm pretty
I
sure.
believe it might have been 2 losses. Dude is going to be a problem.
Absolute
to come.
problem. Like, honestly, like, Michael Venom Page really did go out there and he showed why he should be taken seriously in the UFC. And honestly, Kevin Holland, who kind of has a little bit of mixed reactions on the fan
Yeah.
favoritism, because it's just like what I was saying earlier about the pay in the UFC.
Yeah.
It's either you love Kevin Holland, you're a diehard Kevin Holland fan, or you don't really care for Kevin Holland.
Yeah.
There's
He's not
nothing
your
in
cup
the
of tea.
middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing in the middle there. And for me, I really do adore Kevin Holland. He's one of those fighters that you love seeing it. He's from Riverside, California, which
Yeah.
isn't very far from where we're located. It's like
Yeah.
he's I want to say hometown, but he's very close. And when you
Yeah.
see somebody that's that close to you, it's kind of like
Any of the California fighters for us. I
exactly
mean, Tony,
Mhm.
Nate, the Diaz
the
brothers,
Diaz brothers.
icons.
Mhm.
Uriah Faber, as much as he may be a divisive figure for a
Mhm.
lot of the people that I know
Oh,
in the
of course.
MMA community, you cannot deny that he put everything that he's done with his Team Alpha Male,
Mhm.
and then also starting the first combat sports university program at Sac State,
Mhm.
which, in my personal opinion, I know this is a little off topic, but in my personal opinion, is a huge step for MMA and combat sports
of
in general.
course.
Because if you can get collegiate level MMA a widespread thing in the U.S., I could honestly foresee it being the next college football or basketball. You know, I mean,
Of course, yeah, because when you look at it like this, college football is like known
one of
by
the biggest
one of the
sports.
biggest things.
I mean,
Because
the
there's
stadium
the NFL,
atmosphere,
there's the NFL right there, and
which
then
is
when
the
you think
big
about
league.
it, like when you think of anything else besides the NFL, it's college football.
I mean, you see packed stadiums. Don't get me wrong in the NFL, but it's nothing like college, man. I mean, the
Mhm.
Penn State whiteout, Michigan when they play Ohio State, Bama in the Iron Bowl. I mean, it is electric.
Now, just
atmospheres.
imagine that, but with combat sports
Oh,
in
dude.
college, it's
And
it would be absolutely wild to see that. Like,
electric.
and not only that, you're building the next stars to go into the UFC or to go into boxing or even possibly the very slight chance go into professional wrestling. Like it could happen in any type of combat
I mean,
sports, and
it's
it's like it's very exciting to hear that because you would think that from time and time out that there's these like young guys that want to get into combat sports, and
And
now
they
they
just
have
don't
another
know
way
how
to
to
get
do it.
there now due to Uriah Faber doing that,
And then
it's
also
absolutely amazing.
it's also another thing too with like a lot of the UFC fighters. They're in their like a lot of the high, like Alex Brennan. He's 36.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those guys are older. This is a way to get younger people into the like say UFC faster because like a lot of Raul Rojas Jr. I believe is the youngest UFC fighter.
Yeah,
He's still
started
in
when he
high
was
school.
18.
Yeah, he's probably the youngest UFC fighter, and he's probably been training. What I think he's been training like 2 or 3 years. I want to say.
Yeah, somewhere in between there.
Yeah, but it's like you get kids who have never trained before who join the Combat U program, or maybe they wrestled, which is known as the best base for MMA, which honestly it is. But a lot of them see college wrestling and they're like, well, why don't I do that instead? And that's a perfectly valid argument. I mean, we've had plenty of great collegiate wrestlers. Daniel Cormier,
Brock
Henry Cejudo,
Lesnar.
Brock Lesnar. I mean,
Kurt Angle.
Kurt
the
Angle.
list
I mean,
goes
the list
on
goes
and on.
Yeah.
Gable Steveson, who was also
Yes.
a huge Olympic wrestler, he
Yeah.
joined the WWE now. Also, I wouldn't really bring him into this argument because not trying to throw shade at Gable Steveson, he's an absolutely amazing amateur wrestler.
Yeah.
But when you throw him into something like the WWE, it's kind of hard to really comprehend to going from amateur wrestling
Yeah.
to kind of the sports entertainment genre.
Yeah, it's more.
So he's not really used to it. And in his past couple of matches that I watched, he doesn't look that good, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things to where practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
You don't learn how to be a top tier Olympic gold medalist wrestler in a day.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same thing for professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Like coming from a professional wrestler myself, it's really hard to get used to the ropes and how to do everything, and it really is tolling on the body.
Oh yeah,
and it's way more tolling than, in my opinion, it's way more physically tolling than a lot of other sports because you're being slammed on like hard. It really does do toll on your body.
And it doesn't matter that it's scripted because it doesn't matter what's scripted. You're still getting slammed.
Of course,
you can't just script your body not to hurt unless you put like a mattress under it or something. But they're not doing that.
Yeah. So enough with the MVP and Kevin Holland. Then we had the next fight, which I'm pretty sure was
Dustin Poirier, Benoit Saint-Denis.
Benoit Saint-Denis. I was so hyped for this fight. Now it has nothing to do with the fact that the guy's name is Benoit, because that's what I've been hearing a lot from my brother, from people I know. They've been telling me, "Oh, you only want to see this fight because the guy's name's Benoit, after Chris Benoit." And I was like, honestly, like, yeah, it's cool. Because there's two combat sports fighters that are absolutely like with the name Benoit, like it's gonna catch your eye.
Yeah.
But that had nothing to do with it. Just I've seen fights with Benoit Saint Denis, an absolute fucking monster in the fucking octagon. It's insane.
His last fight was on the 296 card with Leon Edwards and Kobe Covington. That was terrible. But his fight was the standout of the night.
The head kick that knocked him.
That's what made me a fan of him and realize that he's going to be a problem. I mean, he's younger too, and he's a dog. He was former French Special Forces. I mean, dude comes into MMA. He's training. You know, he calls out Dustin Poirier at his last fight. He gets the fight. As soon as I heard Dana announce that, I was like, I already knew it was gonna be a banger. And it did not disappoint.
No, it did not. That first round, it was just a trade of shots. They were guillotine, but literally back to back. Like it was one moment that Dustin had the guillotine on Benoit. Next moment, Benoit had the guillotine on Dustin. It was literally they were trading anything from submissions to punches to. It was a really good fight, and just from being a 2-round fight, because in the second round, Dustin Poirier with an absolute gnarly hook to the chin of Benoit Saint-Denis that sent him to the canvas and knocked him out cold. One of the best knockouts in the UFC that I have seen in recent memory. And the absolute standout knockout of the night.
Yeah.
That will get the knockout of the night bonus. And it's absolutely insane because you gotta look at it this way. Dustin Poirier, the last time we saw him is when he got head kicked by Justin Gaethje. And that was a really bad knockout. And I read something that said that Dustin Poirier
fights coming off
a loss. He's never lost 2 in a row. And he came here tonight and he brought the buzz cut back. He was ready. He's ready to prove that he's not washed. Yeah. He like what we were saying earlier about how we need to get prepared for some people walking out of the UFC. This is not one of those cases for Dustin Poirier. The diamond is here to stay. He's not in the best shape he's ever been, but he is still an absolute force to be reckoned with. And I don't see him going anywhere. And honestly, I'm excited to see what's next for Dustin Poirier because that knockout was absolutely vicious.
It was vicious.
Let's take a look at that knockout real quick.
Right here, let me see, from Official Sports Place on Instagram. So you see there.
What a knockdown! He caught him there, sprawling on him.
Goes for the guillotine.
The guillotine was absolutely.
He breaks out of it, and he just catches him with a foot. It's gnarly.
That knockout went.
I mean, let me see if I can just get a freeze frame of that. He ducks under the hook and just slips him. I can't get a freeze frame, but he just catches him right on the chin. Just the post. He's going down. Benoit Saint-Denis was like horizontal with
an absolute force to be reckoned with for sure. Yeah. Respect to both fighters because at the end of the day, you're putting your body and your mental and physical state on the line when you hop into the octagon, and that was just an absolute beautiful knockout by Dustin Poirier.
And it's not like Poirier is some old guy who's ranked high because he's old. You know, he's older and he's good, but Poirier is not somebody who's just going to get dominated like that. It's And I don't think this should count against Benoit at all because he called him out, sure, and he didn't win the call-out. But Poirier is a hell of a fighter.
Oh my God,
He
what a
is.
great fighter.
I mean, he's honestly. He may not. I don't know. He was interim champ. Was he ever full champ? I don't believe he was. I thought he was
I don't believe
interim.
so.
I don't. If correct me if I'm wrong. I might be here to correct you, but he was never a champion. But he's going to be one of those guys that will be in the Hall of Fame, 100%.
No doubt about it. And Benoit St. Denis, if he keeps on going on the road, he
I
is
can
also
foresee him being a champion. Honestly,
champion
he's got
for sure.
that. Speaking of Hall of Fame fighters, Joanna, I'm not sure if that's. I believe it's Jedrzejczyk, just got into
Inducted
the Hall of
the
Fame.
UFC Hall of Fame in
Tonight.
2024.
Strawweight champion from 2015 to 2017. First female UFC European champion. First Polish UFC champion. And 8 title fights. Is that 8 or 6? 6 title fights, sorry. Most in UFC women's strawweight history. A pioneer of the sport. Absolute legend. Quite possibly the GOAT of women's strawweight. I'm not too well versed on women's MMA outside of, Holly Holm, Amanda Nunes,
Ronda Rousey,
obviously. I mean,
she's the one that brought women's UFC.
No, I mean,
she's not the creator, but she's the one that paved the way for all these other women in the UFC.
She was the pioneer, but there have been a lot of people who are like, man, Dana White needs to stop putting women's MMA on. But, and sure, they can be boring, but, I mean, you see some of those fights where the Alexa Grasso fight is just
Alexa Grasso, one of the best women's fights I've ever seen. Honestly, it was just nonstop action the whole fight, and I just can't wait to see what's next for women's UFC. Because, honestly, I'm one of those people that don't really go out of my way to watch a lot of women's UFC. But when the right fights come around, it just hooks you. It gets you intrigued. It gets you watching, and it gets you just wanting more of it. Like Alexa Grasso, I cannot wait to see what's next for her. And I really hope the title shot is down the line for her.
And I think, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
I think something recently that happened has put a bad taste in people's mouth on the Strickland Duplessis card, 297. Something that put a lot of bad taste in people's mouth was the Raquel Pennington fight against Bueno Silva. Because halfway through the fight, Bueno Silva gave up. She was sitting on her back, just essentially pulling guard and sitting there and taking it, which is like, nobody wants to see that. I don't care how much you want to defend women's MMA. It's not even a knock against women's MMA, because if a male fighter did that, he would get the same kind of treatment. Aljamain Sterling this is off topic, but in a jiu-jitsu competition, I believe it was World Grappling, a dude pulled guard against him and he just wasn't having it. And nobody likes that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is bringing a little bit of my personal MMA or jiu-jitsu into this, but the gym I train at, we don't teach you to pull guard, and it's something that at least we frown upon. I mean, it's not necessarily frowned upon, but we're going to take advantage of it.
Exactly, But what a co-main event by Dustin Poirier.
What a
absolutely phenomenal knockout. Now, the thing that really is what everybody was here for, the main event of UFC 299, Sugar Sean O'Malley defending
his first title defense against Chito Vera.
Against Marlon Chito Vera. Now, one of my most hyped fights of this year.
Oh yeah,
and this really has to come from when we first saw Chito Vera versus Sugar Sean O'Malley, which is around, I want to say, 2020, 2021.
I want to say it might have been 220 or 2020 because it was in the Apex and it was probably during COVID.
Yeah, it was during COVID. There was no fans in the arena, and that was one of those fights where you could hear every single punch land and everything just all put together.
About the Apex.
Mm-hmm. Now, this fight, I was going into it with an open mind because I'm not gonna lie. I want to say about 3 hours before the main card started, I was thinking about it and I was like, well, I really do love Sugar Sean O'Malley, one of my favorite UFC fighters. He's probably in my top 3. Yeah, he's probably in my top 3, if not definitely in my top 5. But Sugar Sean O'Malley is an absolute monster in the bantamweight division.
Goodness.
When we saw him against Aljamain Sterling, he basically made Aljamain Sterling look like lightweight.
I mean, he caught him. He made him overextend, and then he just caught him on the chin. And like he said, he told the media, "I just catch people's shins," and he does. He caught Chito Vera with a big knee.
Oh wow, dude!
That
knee was probably the best, not knockout punch, because that obviously goes to the co-main event, Dustin Poirier, but just shot in general.
Yeah.
That goes
Oh,
to Sugar Sean O'Malley with that knee to the face of
Yeah.
Cheeto Vera,
I
because
mean,
that
it
knee
was
basically determined the rest of the fight. Cheeto Vera
that. Yeah,
wasn't
that
really
one.
rushing much, and I want to say,
I
like,
mean,
I did expect a knockout by Sean O'Malley,
I
but as much as durable as Cheeto Vera is, that knee really did the most damage in the fight. Like,
just
that
the
knee
freeze
is
frame of that. It's
absolute.
gnarly, man. I mean,
Oh,
it's. Ugh. I mean, you could hear the pop after it too. You could hear. I mean, it was absolutely crazy, man. And I'm seeing here now that Sean O'Malley actually left the fight with Cheeto Vera in a walking boot, and it appears he has some sort of cast on his arm. So who knows what kind of injury that could be? More than likely a foot injury. At the end of the fight, before the end of the fifth round,
that body shot.
that he caught it. I honestly, I think if there was more time left in that round, I think Cheeto maybe finishes because
Cheeto Vera could have
he.
finished him
I
there.
mean, he catches him with that body shot, gets him into the clinch, and right as the round ends, he throws a knee. And if that catches Sean O'Malley just directly on the face, I think he's down.
Yeah, honestly, I agree. If there was at least 20 to 30 seconds left in that final round, we
Yeah.
definitely could have seen a Cheeto Vera
Yeah,
stoppage, which
and that would have been absolutely insane because he got. I mean, as much as to me, it didn't feel like he exactly got dominated, but like he got pretty well beat all of those rounds. I had it 4-1 because I thought he
so
won
did
the
I.
fourth round, but I could easily see it being 5-0, and that's what the judges gave. But
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
definitely.
it would have been a crazy upset. I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you,
you're good.
but
Yeah.
it would have been a crazy upset if he would have pulled that off. And I thought both these fighters were really good, and either one could have took it home tonight. And Sean just he won.
Yeah, Sean was definitely the better fighter tonight, and in my opinion, the better fighter overall, because the first time we saw Cheeto Vera and Sean O'Malley, he had a very bad leg injury, which
He
led.
sprained his ankle.
He sprayed his
Yeah.
ankle, which led
I
to
wasn't sure if he
the
sprained it
whole
or
outcome of the fight was because of that ankle injury.
yeah.
And now we see Sean O'Malley injury free in the beginning of this fight throughout the rest of the fight, which basically shows us that Sean O'Malley is just that guy.
Yeah.
He comes
Oh,
out there,
yeah. No, he
he
is
pulls a
forced
Diaz
to be
brother.
reckoned with.
He pulls a Diaz brother. He smokes a lot of marijuana. He smokes a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of weed.
I mean,
And he comes out there still looking like he's never touched a single substance in his life.
yeah.
And he absolutely shows why he is the future of the UFC, and he could be not trying to bring him into it, but he could be the next Conor McGregor, because Conor McGregor is known for his shit talking and everything, but a lot of people want to say that that's going to Ian Gary, but Ian Gary is
Ian
like,
Gary. I think a lot of people are saying Ian Gary because he's
he's
Irish.
Irish.
But
That's it.
speaking of the next Conor McGregor, Ilya Taporia had his
Ilya
name called last night
Taporia.
by Sean O'Malley.
Sean
And
O'Malley
as
and
much as I
Ilya
would,
Taporia.
as much as I would love to see that fight,
I
do
don't
not
think
get
they
me
should.
wrong. I believe Marab deserves a title shot
Marab
before
definitely
Sean
deserves
O'Malley goes up. I believe that Sean O'Malley should defend his belt at least a couple more times. If he doesn't lose to Marab, if it's a close fight, I think he defends it one more time. If he dominates Marab, I'm all fine with him going up to the next weight class and fighting Ilya Taporia. But Taporia is a bad man, dude. He will. I mean, that right that he caught Volk with. I mean, it was gnarly.
So yeah, and I also heard about Gilbert Burns talking about how a lot of his sparring partners and a lot of his team got knocked out cold by
By
Ilya
Taporia,
Taporia in
man.
sparring, and I don't know the context. I don't know if they were sparring to knock out.
Hard sparring.
I don't
to get
know if they were
knocked
light
out,
sparring, but it really goes to show that Ilya Taporia came here to play, and he is ready. He's ready to make his name known in the UFC, and I think the best way to do that, besides beating Alexander Volkanovski, is to fight Sean O'Malley.
yeah,
Now, to get his name out there, that's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
But personally, like you said, I think Sean O'Malley should defend against Marab. And I don't know what place Peter Yan is after beating Song Yadong.
I think Peter Yan deserves maybe another shot.
Yeah,
I think it should go Marab,
Peter Yan.
and
And
then
debatably,
I'm not too sure who would be third on there, but I mean,
you could argue an Aljamain Sterling rematch, depending on what happens with Aljamain Sterling at UFC 300. But honestly, I don't see Aljamain Sterling going in the number 3 spot, but definitely Marab and Peter Yan for
what
sure.
would be incredible, and what I could see Dana White cooking up if Aljamain wins, and let's say Marab fights Sean, he loses, and then Sean defends against Peter Yan, and Peter Yan wins, then you set up the rematch for Peter Yan and Aljamain, which that fight, obviously, a lot of controversy around because of the illegal knee and the DQ and stuff like that. And there's not really a universal rule set, I guess you could say. It's very vague and up to interpretation on what an illegal knee is. It's weight bearing, but what's weight bearing? It's all those lines are being drawn and who draws them.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people weren't very happy about that, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if that's something that, if the pieces fall into place, Dana White is instantly on top of, because let's be honest, that would sell a ton, because nobody liked, a lot of people didn't like that. Unless you were an Aljamain Sterling fan, you didn't really necessarily like that. And I mean, even Aljamain, I know, felt bad about winning that way, because he felt like he didn't truly win, and a lot of people are of the same mind. But
yeah, but an absolutely amazing UFC 299 card, and Sean O'Malley, absolutely dominant performance against. Sorry, my mind is absolutely fired. Cheeto Vera, yeah. Sorry, mine's fogging right now, but absolutely amazing card, and I cannot wait to see what holds with Pereira versus Jamal Hill on UFC 300, and we'll get to that when the time comes. But before we get to the Francis Ngannou and Anthony Joshua fight, I do have to bring this up because honestly, it really does piss me off, and it really goes to show how bad boxing is going down the drain. Because coming from a boxer myself, you really got to put yourself in these people's shoes. The professional boxing industry is more of a business than it is a sport because you got to make the most money possible, and that's probably the highest paying combat sports right now, if we got to be honest.
Oh, no, 100%. I mean, the Saudis, they paid Ngannou $20 million for Tyson?
$20 million.
I believe, or was it 50?
It was $20 million. I believe it was $20 million for him to fight Joshua, and then Joshua got $40 million.
Yeah, and then I want to say it was in it. I mean, they were paying him stupid amounts of money to fight Tyson Fury, and then
also, I don't want to bring this bum up, but me and my friend Joaquin, who's also an amateur boxer, me and him have had conversations about this before, and it absolutely disgusts us how guys like KSI and these influencer boxers are getting paid almost $20 million for these influencer fights when really they don't know how to fight at all, and it really goes to show how bad
that's something
they're disrespecting the sport of boxing, and it really gets on my nerves.
I may not know as much about boxing. I may I know all Muhammad Ali, George Foreman. I know all the big guys from it, but I may not be as well versed on boxing. But something that I feel very strongly about is, as much as Jake Paul may have benefited from the combat sports and whatever, I think him coming into boxing, I think it kind of ruined the sport, honestly. I mean,
it definitely brought more eyes to the sport, in my opinion. It definitely brought more viewership, but at what cost?
Quality.
Quality is what the cost is.
Now, the Francis Ngannou Fury fight, good fight, and that's not in the same vein as Jake Paul and Nate Diaz, but it still is it feels like the quality has gone down. Now, that Francis Ngannou fight with Tyson Fury was a good one. Personally, Ngannou should have won that.
Oh, of course.
Tyson Fury looked terrible, but again, from what I've heard, Tyson Fury didn't train. He was saying he's eating cheeseburgers and stuff before the fight, and that's not something you do.
No, I definitely believe Tyson Fury on that because I've seen footage of Tyson Fury training. He looks a lot more slimmer, a lot more muscular now, preparing for Alexander Usyk. And honestly, I hate to say this, but I do think that Tyson Fury is going down a very dark path because when you struggle with somebody like Francis Ngannou, who's going from the MMA industry to the boxing industry, and you lose to him, basically, no matter what the judges say, you ask any casual or any experienced boxing fan, they will tell you that Francis Ngannou won that fight. And when you look at that, you see, we'll get to this here in a moment, we see his performance against Anthony Joshua, and it basically throws all of Fury's skill down the drain, and it really sucks because there are people out there, including myself at one point, that thought that Tyson Fury was a top 5 greatest heavyweight boxer of all time, and after this, it's just really hard to believe. But like I was going to get into, the thing that really, really pisses me off is how we recently got announced that on July 10th at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas, live for the first time ever, a boxing fight will be streamed on Netflix for all subscriptions. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson in a boxing match. Now, I don't know if it's an exhibition yet or if it's going to be an official fight, but all I know is that I just got one thing to say, and that's Jake Paul, if you really want to prove yourself as an actual boxer and want to be now, look, if you want to be an actual boxer, sure, we're already past that argument.
You
You
can do
could
it
you could
better.
argue that Jake Paul is an actual boxer,
Yeah.
but if you want to be a championship boxer, a person
Which,
that is chasing championship
yeah,
gold in the sport of boxing, like what you're trying to
yeah,
argue, like you're calling out people like Canelo Alvarez that would absolutely mop the floor with you. But Jake Paul, if you really want people to take you seriously, the first step is to fight competition that is up to Canelo level. Because if you
yeah,
really want to fight Canelo, you got to fight Canelo level talent. Now,
yeah,
for example, when he fought Andre August, he knocked him out in the first round with an
yeah.
uppercut. Andre August had a very terrible record behind him, only beating people that had very high losing records. And not only that, he just got done beating Ryan Borland, who was
Yeah,
17-2, and he had a decent amount of knockouts
yeah,
on his record. But once again, Ryan Borland was an extremely overweight
yeah,
boxer. He had very less experience, and he was inactive for about 6 years.
yeah,
And it was it was around 2 or 3 years before his last fight before he fought Jake Paul. But he hadn't really fought an experienced opponent for about
yeah.
6 to 7 years before he
Mhm.
fought him. Now, it's
And
crazy how Jake Paul is going from that, and now he's fighting Mike Tyson,
55-year-old Mike Tyson.
57-year-old
57.
Mike
Oh my.
Tyson. And Mike Tyson, if not the greatest heavyweight boxer of all
Yeah,
time.
I mean, he is
And
already in the conversation,
you
but
gotta respect what Mike Tyson is doing here because anybody wants a payday.
oh no, yeah, no,
Everybody wants a
everybody wants
payday. But the thing that really upsets me is that I have a very, very, very strong reason to believe that there is a clause in this contract for this fight that is going to have Mike Tyson take a dive.
Oh,
Now, if this
I mean, he has
happens,
nothing to lose by
he has
taking
nothing
a
to
dive.
lose. His legacy is already built. He's 57 years old. No one's going to blame him if he gets knocked out, and why not get a payday out of it?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't blame him for that, but at the same time, I love Mike Tyson, one of the greatest boxers of all time, but you do have to also kind of blame him for the downfall of boxing since he's taking this fight because now you're supporting the idea of Jake Paul in the boxing scene. And if Mike Tyson really doesn't have any rigged clauses in this contract, then Mike Tyson should really be
Yeah,
going to knock out Jake Paul because
yeah,
if he doesn't do it, then Jake Paul is just going to be on a he's going to be on a streak of
yeah.
madness when it comes to this by
Oh yeah,
fighting
no,
more
you'll
unexperienced
never hear the
people.
end of it, man.
And I really don't want to see the Jake Paul ego boost any more than it already
Yeah,
has
man.
because I know the minute he beats Mike Tyson, that's all we're going to be hearing about.
Oh yeah, no,
And
it's going
the
to
problem
be
child, Al
everywhere.
Gallo, fucking the disruptor, he has like four
Yeah.
nicknames right now, and they all really don't make sense.
Mhm.
You can call Jake Paul whatever you want. Has he proved himself in the boxing industry as having skill? Sure.
Mhm.
Can you argue that he's an actual professional boxer that's worthy of fighting
Title
on
contention?
or like
I'm
title
not sure.
contention? No. In my
I mean,
opinion, I don't even think he's close to title
dude. Oh,
contention.
I
He
mean,
could be
yeah.
9-1. He could have 6 KOs. But
That is
when you look at his record, it's majority of
who?
old people,
Old guys?
basketball players,
Nate
YouTubers.
Robinson. YouTube. I mean, like
The list goes
it's
on
okay.
and on of how many people
Mhm.
that Jake Paul is fighting that's inexperienced, and it really pisses me off at the fact that how Mike Tyson is even giving him the light of day because to prove yourself as an actual boxer, you got to fight actual boxer
Yeah,
competition,
exactly.
and this could this could mean nothing coming from me because I have learned from my experiences as fighting on bet boxing and on these fake
Yeah.
cards, and that's why I'm taking it a lot more seriously, which is why I think people are starting to show me a little bit more respect in the boxing world now because
Yeah.
my goal is to go pro by 2025, and I
Mhm.
already talking with boxing promotion, Reels Boxing Promotions,
Yeah.
and Comia, Mexico, and next year I could possibly have a pro fight. And it's one of those exciting things to think about, and which is why I really got to be keeping my eye open in the
Yeah.
boxing world because this is stuff that affects me in the long run.
Yeah. Oh
Like
yeah. No, it's
I'm looking at the future of boxing in the palm of my hand right now when it comes to Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Because how is boxing going to be by the time I'm at a pro level to where I'm able to compete for
yeah,
world
exactly.
championship gold? Because not only is it affecting the boxing world in general,
Yeah.
it's affecting all up and coming pro fighters
Oh
because
yeah. No. I
now you
mean,
have something to look out for.
yeah.
And it really bothers me
Yeah.
seeing Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. People don't really get it, but
Yeah.
when you're as big as a boxing fan as I am and you really understand the sport and the craft of it, you really have to put into consideration
Mhm.
how disrespectful this fight is to the
Oh
sport of
yeah.
boxing. And yeah, of course, I'm still gonna watch it. I'm still gonna tune in
Yeah.
because I own Netflix. I own Netflix way
Yeah.
before this
Who?
fight
I mean,
was even.
and see, that's a smart business decision by them because who doesn't have a Netflix subscription?
Exactly.
I mean,
Almost
they're gonna
everybody in the United States owns a
they
Netflix subscription.
are going to make stupid amounts of money off this, and it's a thing too with like Mike Tyson. He may not be in his prime, but he can still hit like
He can still fight,
Mack
which is
truck, dude.
which is why I'm saying if this fight's not rigged, his goal should be to knock out Jake Paul.
Oh my god!
Because if
dude.
Jake Paul gets knocked out by Mike Tyson, his career is over.
Yeah,
His career is damn near over.
well, I
Because
think
when he
this,
lost
honestly,
he lost to Tommy Fury,
yeah,
that was a split decision. He still got pretty close,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But you got to look at it like this: if he gets knocked out by a 57-year-old Mike Tyson, that's
gotta
going to be
rethink
more
some
viral.
things, exactly.
That's
I
going to
mean,
go more viral than almost any Jake Paul knockout that we've seen so
Yeah.
far.
And you see, then again, it's like I don't feel like he still doesn't lose in this situation because it's like it's Mike Tyson. He's the greatest heavyweight boxer, arguably of all time, and he's got an insane punch power. It's really not a lose-lose for him because I mean, it is, but it isn't because if he wins, then it's like, wow, congratulations, you beat up a
A
57-year-old
retired
Yeah.
boxer.
Yeah. But if you lose, it's like, wow, you got knocked out by
A
a 57-year-old
boxer. Like,
He
no
still
matter
has
which way
power,
it
but
goes.
it's a lose-lose for him. But it's also like it's a win-lose for Mike Tyson, I guess, because you beat Jake Paul, and it's like you humble him. At least I'd hope he'd get humbled by that. But
yeah. So that fight is definitely going to be one that I got to watch just to see how it even plays out. As of right now, my prediction is Jake Paul wins by some form of knockout due to a clause in the contract that basically tells Tyson to do so, where he's getting paid a stupid amount of money for it.
that is.
But on to the actual boxing side of things, I want to talk about the co-main event of the Anthony Joshua knockout chaos card that happened in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And that was Jali Big Bang Zhang versus Joseph Parker. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with these two guys.
No, not really.
But Zhang's last fight against Joe Joyce was a really good performance for heavyweight boxing, and heavyweight boxing has honestly been kind of made a joke for the past couple of years. And this fight kind of looked like to be the uprising of it.
Yeah.
And Jali Zhang, insane punch power, is absolutely fucking insane. And Joseph Parker coming off that huge win over the Bronze Bomber, Deontay Wilder.
Oh,
That was absolutely shocking. I thought Wilder had that fight in the bag on the Days of Reckoning card in Saudi Arabia as well. And honestly, I was not expecting Deontay Wilder to lose. And Deontay Wilder came out looking probably the worst I've seen him in his entire career of being a professional boxer. And Joseph Parker is absolutely impressing me. I know he is a sparring partner of the Tyson Fury, and I know he does pretty good against Tyson Fury in sparring. But Joseph Parker versus Jali Zhang was so fascinating to me because Joseph Parker got knocked down in the third round by Jali Zhang, and he also got knocked down, I think it was round 7, I could be sure. Round 7 or 8, he got knocked down a second time. And by looking at those two knockdowns, you automatically think that Jali Zhang's got the fight won.
Yeah.
But the thing is those were the only two things Jali Zhang did in the whole fight. His power was there for the whole fight, don't get me wrong. His power was there, but his skill was not. He was just standing there, he was waiting, and he was waiting for too long, and he was not throwing his punches in. That's what kind of got him in the end, because Joseph Parker just basically outboxed him, and Joseph Parker, without a doubt, is going to be the future of heavyweight boxing, and I cannot wait to see what's in the store for him. But that fight was absolutely amazing, and I just really wish that Jali Zhang would drop a little bit of weight, because he looked severely overweight in that fight, way more than he did against Joe Joyce. And I really hope that he comes back way stronger, and hopefully we see a fight between fucking Jali Zhang and Deontay Wilder. I mean, that's the way to go. Joseph Parker beat those two guys. Why not put them against each other? Deontay Wilder and Jali Zhang, two guys with extremely amount of power. Put them against each other, and you're sure to get a knockout in that fight for sure. And the main event, Francis Ngannou versus Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua came here to basically his goal was to prove to everybody MMA fighters shouldn't really be coming into the boxing games because it's not really going to end well for them. And we thought that Francis Ngannou was going to be, honestly, a true challenge because of his performance against Tyson Fury. He knocked down the heavyweight boxing champion of the world. Like, when you do that, you really set a name for yourself, and you have expectations. And my expectations were, honestly, I thought Francis Ngannou was going to be Anthony
And
Joshua,
he
and
has the power to.
he had the power to.
There
But
was a, and I don't mean to cut you
you're
off
fine.
here. There was a study done where getting punched full power by Francis Ngannou was the equivalent of getting hit by a Ford Focus at like 25 miles an hour. That doesn't sound like that is getting hit by a car going like a residential speed. That is a lot. I mean, I learned this from Jackass, but like when who did he punch in the nuts?
That was Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah,
pretty sure.
Was it Johnny Knoxville?
Actually,
I don't think it was Johnny Knoxville. It was Steve-O.
It was Steve-O.
It was Steve-O. He punched. Oh my! I mean, Steve-O was wearing like.
Oh, it wasn't. It wasn't Steve-O. It was fuck. What's his name? The guy with the mohawk.
Yeah.
I really don't remember his name.
It wasn't
Party Boy. I don't think it was Party Boy.
Anybody who's seen that movie though knows what I'm talking about. I mean, that is having that kind of power is just, I mean, insane, and that's why a lot of people I think thought that he would get the knockout. But I mean, as much as MMA doesn't translate to boxing, I mean that is just crazy.
But in the first round, I definitely noticed Francis Ngannou. He came out swinging a little bit. He was using his jab a lot, and that knockout was absolutely insane. Let's just like take a little look at it.
It was sad to watch.
That right hand right through the guard, right to Ngannou's face, and not only that, he knocked down Ngannou a total of 3 times throughout the whole fight, and that third time, Ngannou was out cold, and that's one of the saddest things I had to witness.
Same strike like twice, didn't he? Twice in a row, didn't he? I thought. Yeah, because the strike that knocked him down for the second time was the same right hand, and then just back to back, man. I mean, that's gnarly. And Anthony Joshua, I mean, from what I've heard, he's no bum. I mean, he's a 2-time gold medalist, 2-time heavyweight champ.
He's a 2-time world heavyweight champion in boxing, and Anthony Joshua, arguably, in my opinion, after watching Tyson Fury, after watching Zhang, Joseph Parker, Alexander Usyk when he fought Daniel Dubois, when you watch all these guys, only one really stands out, and that's Anthony Joshua. And I really do think AJ is the face of heavyweight boxing right now. And depending on what happens between Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk, I really do believe the winner of that fight should go on to defend the title against Anthony Joshua. And I really do believe Anthony Joshua comes out with the victory of that. And not only that, I'm rooting for Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua has proved himself, and this is coming from somebody who used to be a Tier 1 Tyson Fury meat rider. Like, I love the Gypsy King. He was my wallpaper at one point. He was someone that I would really train my style off of because when I first started getting into boxing, I was a heavier set. I was around 210, 190. Like I was going down and shit. And he's somebody that I would basically base a lot of my skill off of. But after seeing these past couple of fights, it's not fights, but his past fight with Francis Ngannou and like his sparring sessions and everything, it's kind of hard to stand behind Tyson Fury, it's kind of you have more reason to stand behind Anthony Joshua now than you do to stand behind Tyson Fury.
I mean, obviously, you still have that respect for Tyson.
Oh, of course.
You have to recognize when it's time for the old to go and the new generation to come in, and Anthony Joshua is a part of that new generation. I mean, it's the same thing with MMA. I mean, you see these guys. Ian Gary, as much of a fan dislike as he may be, I mean, he is up and coming. Ilia Topuria, another guy. Benoit Saint Denis. Some of the Tom Aspinall in the heavyweight division. That division being held up is
Michael Venom Page, as we saw tonight.
Man. I mean, it's and I hate to get off the subject of boxing here, but in MMA and UFC, as much as I love John Jones as a fighter, do not get me wrong. Please, man.
It's time.
Vacate the belt. You want to fight a 40-year-old Stipe who hasn't fought in forever, man. I mean, at least vacate the belt so Tom can become the champ. And, you won't even do Tom the due diligence of fighting him to unify the title. I mean, that's, it's terrible. Because he doesn't, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think John Jones as great as he may be, and I hate to count him out. I don't think he wins against Tom Aspinall.
I don't think he does either.
Now, a 40-year-old Stipe, he does, but and Stipe is one of my favorite fighters. He's everybody's favorite firefighter. But it's like the dude is out of his prime by a long shot, and you are you're holding up a whole division that's already really struggling just to fight him and injure career off like that. I mean, it's just sad, man.
Yeah, I truly believe the next step for John Jones is to either vacate the belt or the minute he comes back, fight Tom Aspinall to unify the belts. But back to like another thing regarding MMA also has to do with boxing is Francis Ngannou. What lies for him, like I said, Anthony Joshua, what lies for him is definitely a world
Yeah,
championship by the winner of
100%.
Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. But for Francis Ngannou, I think the next in line for him is also a world championship,
But in
just
PFL,
not in the boxing area
PFL.
in
Yeah,
PFL.
I mean, honestly, I hate to interrupt, but
Yeah.
I really think he should. I mean, that fight with Tyson Fury, don't get me wrong, great, and it's a cool gimmick fight. But I mean, MMA is his natural strong suit, and he needs. I think he really should focus on MMA. I mean, hindsight's 2020 and all that. And, who would have known that he would have gotten knocked out by Anthony Joshua? No, I don't think anybody thought that. Maybe people thought, oh, it'll be the same way as the Fury fight, maybe not necessarily a robbery, but he was going to get beat in a decision or he'd win in a decision, but nobody was expecting him to get knocked out like that, and that's why I honestly think he should stick to PFL. And I understand why he went to PFL because it's just like it's maybe not as big as a promotion as UFC, but I mean they were willing to pay him more and they were probably offering him to be like, "Hey, you are going to be the pioneer of this. You're already a superstar in the UFC. Come over here, make our promotion big." And
Yeah, and another thing, hate to bring this clown up again, but the PFL also has Jake Paul too, which is also going to bring a lot of eyes to PFL. Don't
yeah,
get me
I
wrong,
mean you can't blame them for. I mean, Bellator and PFL have always been smaller names, and there's never really been a name on the level of the UFC. But I
but
mean,
now that they have Francis Ngannou and this clown Jake Paul, it's really going to bring a lot more eyes to the PFL, and then who knows, it could just be like the WWE and AEW situation when
yeah,
AEW was made, it became real competition for the WWE. So with PFL, it could be the same thing. We
yeah,
could see a lot of guys from the UFC when their contracts are up jump ship to PFL.
yeah.
When we could also see a lot of guys from the PFL jump ship to the UFC.
UFC.
It could be
Like,
trade offs, like when
yeah,
we saw CM Punk from AEW
yeah,
coming to WWE and Cody Rhodes from AEW coming to WWE. And then we saw half of the AEW roster that also came from WWE. Like, you got to look at it like that. Like, no matter what, the companies that are rival to each other are going to have to basically
compete with
not
each other.
trade, but a lot of guys are going to want to go there. And a lot of guys are also going to want to go back to the other side of things.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that the right road for Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou right now are 4 world championships, just in 2 different areas
Yeah,
of fighting. Francis
respective
Ngannou
areas,
in the PFL and Anthony Joshua with the winner of Tyson Fury and Alexander
yeah,
Usyk. But definitely a good week for fight cards.
yeah,
Like without a doubt, UFC 299, one of the
hmm
best cards in recent memory for the
yeah,
UFC.
man, for sure,
And then
dude.
Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou also had a pretty good card as well. We saw
Yeah,
Roman Fury. He on the not the prelims. Actually, yeah, on the prelims, it was Roman Fury. He got the dub for the Fury family, and it's just really goes to show what we could expect this year from
yeah,
combat sports. And it was a pretty good debut episode of today's combat, if you
yeah,
ask me.
man, yeah,
And I think that's gonna do it for today's episode. Charlie Taylor, thanks for
yeah.
joining me
Thanks
to
for having
review.
me on, man.
And our next time that we come back with today's combat, we will also have Charlie Taylor
Yeah,
again this time, but we will not be talking about
the fight
reviewing any
card,
cards or anything. We'll be talking about him and his journey in Muay Thai and MMA and his
yeah,
training processes, and we'll be talking about his past for boxing, and
yeah.
we'll be talking about a lot. And you will just have to come and tune in on that next episode next
Come join
Sunday.
us, man.
It will be a pretty good episode
Yeah,
if you ask me. But thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you guys next Sunday on today's combat with CCL Townsend. Deuces.